All right, welcome to Share the Stories podcast, episode 2. Actually, this is like the first episode. The first episode was a pilot episode where I just talked about what the show is, how I came up with the idea, and what to expect as we move forward. And so this is going to be the first real show. And typically what I would do would be interview style with another individual, but today is a little bit different. It's not really interview style, but it is two people. I have my wife here with me, and we're going to tell you, say hello, Haleigh.
Hello, I'm Haleigh.
So we're going to tell a little bit about our stories and our story together, because a big part of this, we want this podcast to be, is a place where individuals feel safe, that they're able to share their story transparently in hopes that other individuals hear this story and are encouraged by or motivated, inspired by to go out and continue to create their own story. Because we can all, even though we all have unique stories, we can relate to other people's stories and be inspired and encouraged by those stories. So Haleigh and I want today to share just a little bit of our stories with that purpose in mind. So what I'd like to do starting out is just say this. So I'm Michael, obviously your host, and my wife is Haleigh. We've been married for going on 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, almost 5
Wow.
years. Yeah. And we've been in a relationship for over 8 years now.
Over 8 years.
Yeah.
Almost a decade.
Almost a decade. So we're a little bit past the newlywed stage.
Yeah.
So we have, what I'm trying to say is we have quite a few years behind us to have a story together. And so we want to share that with you today. So what I'd like to do to start out is just open up. I want Haleigh to share first. We're going to share a little bit about our history, our story before we met each other, and then we'll take it from there. So
Sounds great.
All right.
Sounds great. So I am just going to start in high school. In high school, I had always loved to be creative, even in middle school, but we won't take it back that far today. I played sports and loved playing a different one every single season. And I loved using my creative skill actually in those sports. And I would braid hair for everyone on my team, and made sure that we looked as good as we played, because that's super important, you know. So after a while, I had been intrigued by photography and things like that too. I had saved up for a new camera and been playing around with that for a while.
What kind of camera did you get?
I got a Nikon D. What was it? 3500, I think.
So we have a Nikon now, so we're Nikon people.
We have a Nikon, yeah.
So if you're a Canon or something, I'm sorry, we're Nikon people.
Yeah, we're Nikon people. Nothing against Canon, but just Nikon was my original first love. So, so I played around with that camera and things for a while. And I decided to start up Hal Photography.
Hal is short for Haleigh?
Haleigh.
Okay.
Everyone thought it was pronounced Hale Photography because Hale, I guess that makes sense. But I always wanted it to be called Hal Photography. And that was just another kind of creative outlet for me as I was in high school, and I actually started growing that business a little bit. I didn't necessarily go to City Hall and get my business license for that or anything, but it earned me some money in high school and things.
So early on in high school, you were already doing entrepreneurial things.
I was.
Yeah, you started your own business while you're 17?
Yeah, 17.
Wow.
17,
yeah.
Almost 18.
Cool.
Something like that. So I was a way to make some extra cash. So
yeah,
and I get to be creative, which was fun. But during high school, I also had no idea what I wanted to do after high school because I had been pushed by friends and teachers and things like that college was the way to go, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I knew I loved kids and stuff too, but I was like, I'm just so confused with my life. I don't know. And so I just continued to grow my photography business, and I actually ended up working at a portrait studio, as well during and just after high school. So yeah, working for the portrait studio though was a little bit of a bust. I was never trained fully, and I was left alone at the portrait studio, and I didn't really know what I was doing, so people would come in and they would ask me questions and I wouldn't know the answer. So that wasn't very fun. So I decided that I wanted to become a nanny because I love kids. And I absolutely adored the 2 kids that I was a nanny for.
Yeah, so we were dating at this time. So
yes,
because we started dating like 3 months after you graduated high school.
I did.
You were youngin'.
Yeah, I was a little baby.
Almost 3 years older than you. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so I was in college at this time. But anyways, the reason I say that is because I can attest for those 2 kids. They were awesome. I loved. I would sometimes meet them. Meet at a park and just play and have fun. They were awesome kids. So,
yeah. So Michael was at ODU actually, and there was a park over near him. So I'd bring sometimes both of them, but most of the time it was just one of them because she wasn't in school yet. And we'd go play at the playground like during his lunch break and stuff like that. So Michael got to know those kids really well too.
Yeah.
And the little girl actually had a super huge crush on Michael too. So. But too bad he was already taken. So yeah, during that time too, I actually decided to grow and expand Haleigh photography with weddings and things like that. And it was really fun for a while, but weddings and photography wasn't necessarily like the thing that I felt like I wanted to do the rest of my life. So I would always have migraines at the end of my wedding days because you're looking through the lens like with one little eye and the other eye's really squinted and things like that.
Yeah, migraines aren't fun. So
no. So I decided maybe this wasn't for me. So I was kind of confused again. I didn't know what I was going to do again with my life. And again, the college thing had been pushed back and it was still in the back of my head. So I looked at a bunch of different things, actually. I actually even was interested in dental hygienist, like being a dental hygienist. I don't know if you remember that, Michael,
I remember that. Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, people always like my smile. Maybe I'll just, I don't know, be a dental hygienist. So that was one of the things that I was maybe looking into. I wasn't too sure, maybe being a teacher. But the first few years are just gen ed anyway, so I just went ahead and started a semester at TCC, which is Tidewater Community College, just the local community college where we were at in Virginia Beach area, or Hampton Roads area. And I did that for about a semester, and I was done.
Well, so, yeah, you did it for a semester, but you were done after like a month. You're like, this isn't for me.
I did not like school. I never liked school anyway, so that was definitely not for me. And then I actually found out that Rudy and Kelly Academy, which is a Paul Mitchell partner school, they had an open house, and Paul Mitchell, if you don't know, is cosmetology, so hair, makeup, even some nails, waxing, things like that. So they had an open house, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll just go try this out because it's maybe another creative outlet for me. And I went to the open house, and I was like, oh, it's only a year long. I can do anything for a year. So I decided to...
Yeah, but it was a year long, but it was 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, so 40 hours a week.
Yeah, so schooling. It was a 40-hour week schooling.
So you weren't able to do anything other than that for the whole year?
Yeah. I still was able to do nannying on Mondays because it was Tuesday through Saturday because those are typically salon hours.
Yeah.
So I only did that on Mondays. So thankfully, I was still living with my parents then, so I was able to, lean on them during that time when I wasn't making much money or anything.
Yeah.
And Michael and I were dating all through this as well. So I would go to school, and then Michael and I would hang out till like 11, 12 at night.
1 a.m., 2 a.m.
2 a.m. And you're driving home like exhausted and you still have homework to do.
But yeah, I mean, if you're both in school and both working, you want to see each other, you got to make time for it.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's
we did.
What we did. And we lived half an hour away.
We lived half
an hour away. So that drive back
yes.
at 1 a.m. in the morning was quite long.
Yeah. Sometimes, though, I'll admit this, I would get home super quick, and Michael was wondering why. I had a very bad speeding problem at the time. So...
But if you look at our driving records,
Michael's is
I
worse
have more
than mine.
speeding tickets, so it would seem that I was the worst driver, although...
I've been in more wrecks.
Yeah, I've never been in a wreck, so
yeah,
just
good
some
job.
speeding tickets.
Well, good job.
Yeah.
I've only been caught once speeding, so...
Yeah. Okay, quick side note, I just had to throw this in there about speeding tickets. So... The day before I went to get my driver's license at the court, in Virginia you have to go to the court and like attest that you're gonna follow the rules and everything, and then they'll give you your driver's license. So the day before that, I got caught speeding, got pulled over, and so before I even officially got my hard copy driver's license, I already had a speeding ticket on my record. So yeah, I don't have the best record with that.
I feel like I don't remember that one. You telling me that?
Yeah, I was quite younger. So.
Yeah, it was before we met then. Yeah. Wow, okay. Well, there's something new that you learn every day, even after being together almost a decade. So anyway, I was at Rudy and Kelly, and I absolutely fell in love with cosmetology. It was like the perfect creative outlet. It always kept you on your toes because everyone's head of hair is different. Everyone's skin is different as far as makeup goes. So you can be creative, but it's not the same thing every single time. So after school, I was trying to find somewhere to work. And I decided to apply to a few salons, and I ended up working at a small salon that was super awesome to work at. The people were like great. I loved it. But I still wanted more. I missed that entrepreneur side that I had as far as doing photography and things like that. So,
yeah, we're gonna
pause
right
there because that's starting to be into our own story.
Exactly.
Together.
That starts to get into where we were married. So I'm gonna give you now a little bit of my backstory before Haleigh and I got married, and then we'll share a little bit about a lot of it that's happened since we got married.
A lot.
Yeah. Anyway, so for me, starting back, I played sports all growing up. Like I was the family that spent every single weekend, Saturday and Sunday, 8 hours a day at the baseball or softball field. And that's the main place we stayed. But I played all the different sports growing up. I poured everything that I had into it. My family poured everything that we had into it. To try to create a good future for each of our siblings, and we just loved it too. And so, but during that time, while in high school, I would say I fell more in love with training, like the preparation to play the sport, than actually playing the sport itself. And so I started at the age of 14. I started working out. I started lifting weights. I started doing sprints, all the things that you need to do to get faster, stronger, and more explosive, better at your sport. And I just fell in love with that process. And even from an early age, even like by like 15, after doing it for like a year, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to help other people do this same thing and see this progress and push their body and just make an awesome transformation. Like the same thing I'm doing for myself now, I want to help other people do it. And that's been a real driving force for me even, from that day all the way till now.
And you even trained some of your siblings and things too.
Yeah,
right?
I was actually just about to say that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
my first clients, I guess, or not clients, but just people I was helping out. I trained for a few years for free before I ever started getting paid for it, and I would train my sister's softball team. I would do the strength and conditioning. We're talking like 12-year-olds. I'd like make them do the drills and the push-ups and all that stuff. It was really fun, and I trained some friends at school. I had friends come up to me like, "Hey, like, I see what you're doing. That looks awesome. Can you help me out?" I'm like, "Sure. I love this. I just want to help other people." So even in high school, I had already started coaching people to better themselves physically, and so like I said, from an early age, I realized this is what I want to do moving forward, and I was like, I want to be a strength conditioning coach. I want to I want to own my own gym. I want to help as many people do this as I can. And so before I get there, though, I want to share, so starting in my junior year, I realized that I had a real talent for running. Okay, I'd always liked when we did sprints and stuff for baseball. I was secretly liked those times, and
what a weirdo.
I know. And so my junior year of high school, I was kind of burnt out from baseball, and so I was I'm gonna give cross country a go. It's a completely 360 degree turn there, but I was I'm gonna give it a go just to take a break. And I quickly realized that I had quite a bit of talent in that area, and so actually ended up quitting baseball and doing cross country and track and field full time. And that was a big deal because, like I said earlier, my family had poured so much time and investment into giving me and my sister these amazing opportunities to go to college for baseball and softball. And I kind of flipped the script, but thankfully I was able to run pretty fast. I got a Division I college scholarship to run cross country and track and field. But kind of along the way, my senior year of high school into my freshman year of college, I had some dark times, and so a lot of people don't know. A lot of people know that I had a lot of injuries, especially my freshman year of college. I had a stress fracture in my tibia. I missed the entire cross country season, and then the track season, I was battling sickness, battling tendonitis, some other different injuries, and just the whole year was either injured or sick. And that was a direct result of how I was treating my body, not when I was training. And so I had, a lot of people don't know this about me, but for 3+ years, I struggled with disordered eating. And starting into my junior year of high school, into my freshman year my senior year of high school into my freshman year, and even another year after that, I struggled where I would just be stuck in a cycle of binge eating, overeating, and then feeling so upset at myself and so just angry at what I had just done, and that and this guilt that I needed to be light for running, because there is that component in running. To be fast, you oftentimes need to be a little bit on the lighter side, and I would take that to the extreme, oh man, I have to be really skinny to be fast. And so I would just get upset at myself, and that would go into a severe restriction of calories, or making myself throw up, or just any way that I could get either calories out of me or burn as many calories as I possibly could. Yeah. And then I would get depleted. I would get run down, very tired, and then I just couldn't discipline myself, and then I would go on this binge again. And that was just a cycle for literally 3 years.
Yeah.
I battled that. And that obviously has health, effects. And so that's where a lot of my injuries came from. And so between the injuries and the disordered eating, I was I have to get my life together. My life is more important than running. And so I decided to give up my college scholarship and focus on, healing myself. And so I moved back home Went to school at ODU, Old Dominion University. Shout out to them. And so, but this actually turned out to be like, I'm
glad he came back.
Yeah. So at the time I was like, man, this is like the hardest decision ever. This really has to be done. And then there was just so much good that came out of it. Like when I went to ODU, like I met in the small group at my church, which I wouldn't have been a part of if I was away at school. Yeah. I met my wife, Haleigh, my future wife. And I also at Old Dominion University, I met my best friend who's been instrumental in my life, and so it turned out to be an amazing decision for me, and it's just funny how like sometimes that happens, and like it's like a really hard decision, but then you later down the road realize that it was probably the best decision. And so while sometimes I look back and reminisce on what could have been from running, I'm super, super grateful for what did happen.
And if you know Michael now, he still is super awesome at running. So
yeah. So side note, I took like 4 or 5 years off from running completely. I worked out and strength trained, all that stuff during that time, but I just had a bad relationship. It left a bad taste in my mouth with running, and so it took me 4 to 5 years before I could kind of move past that and have that kind of healed in my life where I could begin to run again. And so in a healthy way, and it's continued to be a healthy way to this day. So I'm super grateful for that. But back to my story. So like I said, Nick has been and Haleigh have been instrumental. Obviously, she's my wife, but my best friend Nick has been instrumental in my life as well. He was one of the main people who actually helped, fully convinced me that opening a gym was a real possibility and something to really shoot for. Because I always had these doubts in my mind, like, oh man, I don't know if I can do that. That seems like a really big thing. It's going to take a lot of resources and time, and am I going to make any money? Is it going to be successful? I had all these doubts in my mind, and Nick's one of those people who just said, like, you got to go for it, man. Like, if this is in your heart and this is your dream, like, you got to go for it. And so, like, so he's one of the people who really pushed me forward for that. And actually during college, I started training, like getting paid for training when I was a junior in college, and I worked at one gym for about a year and a half. Then I went to another gym, and I was there for like a year, and I was still there when I graduated college. And I had been up front with the owner of that gym from the very beginning, like, hey, this is my long-term goal. I want to open my own gym, but I'm here to learn and to give you my best until that day comes. Yeah. And so as the day started to come closer and closer, and he started to realize that was a real thing, that I was serious about it, he then forced me with a decision where I had to either sign a piece of paper basically saying that there's no way I could open a gym in this area that I lived in, or you'd have to quit. And at the time I had like 30 clients. It was a full-time job. I was making good money. And so in that moment, he gave me a 24-hour time frame. He's like, you have to make a decision in 24 hours. So those next 24 hours, I was like reaching out to people. I was like praying. I was like, what am I supposed to do? It's either now or never. Like, do I stay safe and keep this job and continue to get paid well, or do I go in for my dream? And so I ultimately made a decision to say, thanks but no thanks, and then take the first step towards opening my gym. And for that summer, the next couple of months, that's what I did. I started to prepare. I signed a lease. I trained a few clients at their home over the summer in hopes that they would, stay with me as I through this transition. And some of them did, and I'm super grateful for that. And I opened my gym actually like 2 months after I herniated 2 of my discs in my low back.
That's right.
So that was fun. Yeah, I basically broke my back. I couldn't move.
No.
But I had to get the gym ready, and Haleigh helped a lot, and my parents and my family helped a lot, and friends to ensure that I could get it done. But it was a long process. Anyways, I'm getting a little sidetracked here. But I began FFP with, I think, 7 clients. Okay. And no plan, no idea what I was doing. I'd never owned a business before. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any money to fall back on. I spent all my money to either buy equipment or put the down payment on the lease. I even had to borrow money to pay for a few things, pay for the sign, some things like that. And, I just busted my tail for the next 6 months because Haleigh and I were getting married.
Yeah.
And so I had to build it up enough that I could have a paycheck so we could pay rent because we were both living in our parents' house at that time. And so so basically we had to make enough money that we could survive. And so I just worked 40, 60 hours a week doing that. And then, so that kind of leads us to then where we got married.
Yeah, that's about when we got married.
And so, Haleigh, you want to say a little bit about we paused you, right?
Yes,
as you were working at your salon.
Yeah, I was working at a salon, and I still had inklings of that entrepreneur life. So I wanted to have my own business. I actually grew up going to a cosmetologist's house that cut my family's hair in her garage, actually. And I was always kind of intrigued by that. I was like, oh, you can work in your house. That's pretty cool. And her salon was all done up and everything. So it was pretty cool. And I was like, oh, I think I could do that maybe one day. And, Michael started his business, at a location and things. And we were talking about it. And, it was kind of nerve-wracking because I had just graduated cosmetology school. So I hadn't built up my clientele to the point where I thought that I could make, a decent amount of money or anything. But either way, I was going to have to build up my clientele. And actually the salon I was working at, they charged a lot of money for hair. So it was really hard for a new cosmetologist to be like, hey, pay X amount of money for a haircut. But I just graduated cosmetology school and I'm still working on it.
And you didn't have a clientele this time either.
And I didn't really have a clientele, no.
You had a few recurring clients where
that were my friends.
But for the most part, you didn't have a clientele.
Yeah, so I still had to build up my clientele. So we thought, well, hey, if I started this business and I charge a little bit less, then people would be more willing and able to come. So that's when I had started Chop the Locks, which was my little hair salon business. So yeah,
and so it started in our dining room at
our living room. Well, yeah, living/dining room.
It was a living/dining room. Yeah, we had a little. It was a 2-bedroom townhouse.
Yeah,
it's actually bigger than what we have here now in California.
It is California.
Yeah, but anyways,
can't get as much.
So yeah, half of our living/dining area was Haleigh's
little salon. It actually had a perfect little.
And how did you wash people's hair?
Yeah, so I had this. If you're watching this on video, you'll see my hands, but it was like a rectangle little plastic thing, and it had a little slot for your neck, and there was a little handle thing that the person would hold, and then they would sit in a chair in front of the kitchen sink and lean their head back, and that's how I would wash their hair. So we didn't have
So it wasn't very comfortable. They had to hold it while they were getting their hair washed by a sink.
Those clients of mine were very committed to coming to me, and I really appreciate them. But yeah, so there was a perfect little nook actually in the living room where it wasn't a fully square room. It was a square, and then there was a little extra area, and my two little salon things fit right there, and that's where I did it.
Yeah, it worked out well.
Yeah.
And then so during this time too, I was working at FFP, and so the thing that I really miss,
is me too. I know what you're about to say.
Yeah. So our townhouse that we're talking about was literally right across the street. All you had to do was
literally
cross
walk
the street.
Across the street.
I could walk there in 90 seconds.
Yeah.
So sometimes it kind of stunk because you would never get a break from seeing
very true
the gym. But it was so nice to be able to basically just roll out of bed, grab a cup of coffee, and just walk over there and start training. Anyway, so that was a little side note, but I do miss that part. But during this time, so I was still working like 60 hours a week. I was doing everything at FFP. I was doing business development. I was doing marketing.
Yep.
I was coaching early mornings, afternoons,
Yep.
late into the evening, even did like in the middle of the day training. And then just like during those couple hours in between training, I would either get business stuff done or try to squeeze in a workout of my own. And try to stay fit because, that's important too. But all this work that I was putting in was starting to really pay off, and the business was really starting to grow. We're starting to get a good clientele going, good enough that I started to get more equipment for the gym. I started to pour money that I was making back into the gym to grow and develop it, to really get our name out there. And Haleigh, we ran to the point where I couldn't do everything, and Haleigh actually had to step in and coach there part-time, as well as doing her, her Chop the Locks business. And so she was working at both places, and, super grateful for that.
Which I didn't know that I was going to like coaching, actually, but it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. You did an amazing job, obviously, as many people can attest to. But so during this time, we're obviously super busy, but Haleigh and I thought it was a great idea to start a third business.
Yeah.
And so, because we both, as you know from so far, we're both entrepreneurial minded. And so we're like, oh, let's just, go for another one.
Just start another one.
Yeah. And so we started this, it's a subscription box business back when subscription boxes were just kind of getting launched.
They were.
Haleigh, you want to tell a little bit about that, what that is?
Yeah, so our third business we started up was called the Hope Box, and the main people that we were marketing to were kids. So in the box that you would get was like a fun little like movie, like maybe VeggieTales or something like that. So it was geared towards like more Christian based as far as the things in the box, and we would always write like a little handwritten note in there, and things like that. So
we charged, I think it was $20 a box.
It was,
and we were making like $4 to $6 a box, $4, basically. Yeah. And so we did that for like 4 months, and sometimes I wish that we would have continued it because it was growing.
It was, yeah.
And it was at the point where it was probably going to start taking off pretty soon if we had stuck to it. But the reason we stopped is we were just completely overloaded with everything going on with running FFP. Obviously, that's a big time consumer, and then Haleigh, trying to grow her Chop Locks, and we wanted to have some time for ourselves in our relationship, and so we ultimately chose to discontinue that. And then pretty much right after that, for some reason, I don't know, sometimes you just make bonehead decisions. You just don't learn your lesson the first time. But then, so I was like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. So now I have enough time I want to go back to school. And so I applied and got into a graduate program at Liberty University. I was going to do a Master's of Divinity, which is, like seminary. And so I started that. It was all online. I was like, oh, I could just squeeze it into my cracks of my day. Like I squeeze everything else in the cracks of my day. But soon those cracks filled up too quickly.
They did.
And so I only was in that graduate program for like a semester and a half. And then it again got to that breaking point. I was literally just like, at one point I was just like in tears. I was like, I can't do all this. Like my body, my mind, I cannot do this. And so as much as I have like, a lot of times in my life, I have long-term outlooks like delayed gratification. And it was one of those things where I was like, I just want to put in the work now. And then, some years from now, I want to be able to see the fruits of my labor. And so, but ultimately that wasn't in the cards. It wasn't God's plan. And so I stopped that. Like I said, because our businesses were starting to grow rapidly, which is a great thing. And so this then, because they were growing rapidly, started the most rapid expansion of our life, the most stressful time of our life, and the time of life where we've learned the most.
Yes, absolutely. So to expand, we did a couple different things for both of our businesses. We actually we bought our first house that next January. So we got married February the year before that, and then January the next year. We bought this house, and it had a garage for Chop the Locks, so I could offer.
Yeah, so that was the main purpose. While we were happy where we were, but we wanted a place where Haleigh's business could really start to grow, and we felt like a garage or a separate room of the house where she could do that and make it like her own personal salon would be the best way forward. And so that's why we started looking for a house.
Yeah, so it would be a better experience for my customers, and it could be more professional, not just in my living room, and I could wash their hair in an actual sink for hair. So a shampoo bowl, if you don't know what that is.
They didn't have to any longer hold their own.
No, they didn't have to hold it.
They had a legit...
Actually, my shampoo bowl had a headrest in it. So if you've ever gotten your hair done or hair washed at a salon, normally your head is like leaning back and your neck is like all cranked out. Like it still isn't that comfortable, actually. So in the very back, like right where the back of your head is, was a little headrest. So...
yeah, it was amazing.
It was a lot more comfortable. I did head massages in there that everybody loved. So
another side note, ever since you've started, I've gotten free haircuts and will continue to get free haircuts for my rest of my life.
Yes, you will.
It's great.
That's fantastic.
So anyways, so we moved into this
as well.
So we moved into this house, for the main purpose of Haleigh's business, but we also wanted to make an investment financially. And so we wanted a foreclosure that we could get for a good deal, and that wasn't in terrible shape, but in shape that we could, fix it up and do what we needed to do. And that way, when it was time to resell, that we could make a somewhat decent profit.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, and again, like I said, this is the most stressful time of our life. So we just bought that. We have a house that's kind of not in the best shape. We had to get ready for Haleigh's clients to come in, and so we were in the middle of that. But at the same time, this gym space that I had been waiting on for the past year, basically, this is where I originally wanted to start the gym, but it was too ambitious to start. It was time I was negotiated. Finally got a good enough deal where I felt that it was reasonable to go there. And so...
And before you ever made that decision and stuff, you would go over there and you would walk around that building and you would pray.
Yep. Yeah, so I would do that. I don't know how many times I did that. I did a bunch of times. I would either just run circles around the building or go walk around the building and just, pray and just like ask God, like, hey, if this is the space for me... and for the FFP, like, please, make that obvious to me, and please, like, hold this building, and just make it like, this is the place for the business, I want it to, and so, so that became available. It became, and the business was at a point where I felt somewhat comfortable to go ahead and make that move. It wasn't. I would have liked to see more growth before I went over there, but. The timing just seemed appropriate, and honestly, I was just being ambitious. And I was kind of looking far into the future, what could have been. And anyways, I made the jump. I wanted to start a sports performance side of the building, not just do adult training, but I wanted to do youth training as well. The new space would allow me to do that. It was over 3 times the size. So we started in 1,500 square feet. This new building was 5,000 square feet. Okay, so it was significantly more money per month, and not only that, but I had to continue to pay my other rent for the smaller building that we're in. So now I moved into a bigger building. It requires more equipment to get started. There's more rent per month, but then I also have to continue to pay my old rent, and so I had 2 rents going. I had to buy more equipment. And it was also tax season. So I had to pay my taxes from the beginning, from the previous year. And so Haleigh and I's money ran dry very quickly. And so a lot of people don't know this. I don't think anybody really does, but
No.
I had to, with all this said, I had to borrow over $20,000 at, just in that short period of time. In a couple months, I had to borrow over $20,000 to make that transition possible and to get FFP to a place, where it somewhat appeared that we were staying afloat, even though it was far from that.
And it made a better experience for your clients.
Yes,
as well,
yeah.
Which
So,
is the real reason behind it.
Yeah, and it made it a much better experience. So the other place was really small. There was only one bathroom, no showers, very crowded all the time. And so we needed a place where it was a little less crowded. There was more amenities available, things like that. And so, again, I probably should have went somewhere halfway in between, but I chose a 5,000 square foot building and had to borrow a lot of money, to make that happen.
Yeah.
And so,
over the next 2 years or so, I was growing Chop the Locks, and I made sure that we had, some income and things like that. So, we could still do our dreams and
so basically Haleigh
like
during
that,
this time she was the bread maker. She was making all the money. I was
bread maker.
I was making zero basically. So yeah, again, the financial side of things, like, I there was a period of like 6 months probably where I brought home per month $0 to $200.
Yeah.
So I don't know if many people have tried to live on a paycheck of $0 to $200, but it's pretty hard.
And it's not like Chop the Locks was
when you don't have a savings account either to fall back
money.
on.
Yeah. It's not like Chop the Locks was making a bunch of money or anything either. I was growing, but I wasn't, making bank either.
Yeah.
So.
And so there was many months, so probably for the next year and a half, 2 years, where Haleigh and I, if it wasn't a bill, and if it wasn't an absolute
necessity,
absolutely necessity, then we didn't buy it. And we literally every month, like, it was down to the wire, like, are we going to pay the bills? Like, how are we going to get through the next week? How am I going to buy gas tomorrow in my car? Like, we'd put $5 at a time in our cars because we couldn't afford to pay more to get more gas in our car than that.
Yeah, we would even take out all the tips that I would make. I wouldn't spend my tips on all the, like Starbucks or whatever I wanted to. I would save them, and we would literally spread it out on the table and count to see if we could make, ends meet.
Yep. Yeah, so we never went out to eat. The only time we got to eat other food than our own is if we went to our parents' house and got money. And we honestly did that like twice a week.
Yes, we
did. Like, please,
every single weekend.
Please feed us. We don't have any money. Like, we can't even pay for our groceries.
Sometimes they would even pack us food home.
Yeah, and so we'd have dinner the next night. And so, we didn't buy any clothes, didn't buy any shoes, nothing. Okay, if it wasn't a necessity. And if it wasn't necessary for living, like, we didn't have the budget to make it happen. And so this was kind of the next year and a half to 2 years. And, over that time, too, I would say that, I can definitely say that I never brought home more than $1,000 in a month.
Yeah.
So just to give you an idea, that's a $12,000 a year salary. And again, I mean, that's, below the poverty line. It's very hard to live off of. And there was times where I had to make FFP, to make ends meet FFP, to pay the bills at FFP, I had to borrow more money.
Yeah.
And I had to keep adding to that $20,000 total.
Yeah.
And so,
so we decided to close the gym in the fall of 2018. Just because it was pretty difficult for us, and we knew what we had been praying about and knew that there was something else that God wanted us to do together. We weren't really sure what it was, but we had been praying about it and things like that. It was a very, very hard decision, but
all of our, like I said, all our resources were completely exhausted, and Haleigh and I honestly really felt strongly that the Lord was leading us somewhere else. And like she said, we didn't know where that was at the time.
No.
But we're like, okay, we feel that this is the appropriate time. It feels like, God, you're telling us that now is a time. Like, we've put in our due diligence. We've tried.
Closing the door.
And you're closing the door on FFP. And so we're going to follow that. We're going to honor that. Mm-hmm. And as hard as it is to say goodbye to something that you've poured your life into for the last 4 years, and the relationships and with the people that you've built there, and like just amazing friendships that you have to move on from. And so it was an extremely hard thing to do. It was we were both anxious and like
didn't really know what was
struggling.
next, honestly.
Didn't know what was next. So yeah, we made the decision in November 2018 to close the gym. And then I got a part-time job at a physical therapy clinic, and I was doing online coaching for some of my clients were from FFP that wanted to continue working with me. And so I coached them remotely and started working at a physical therapy clinic to make ends meet. And so
Michael's even a great coach online too. He makes you work.
Side note, yeah, I still do online coaching. So
he does.
If you just throwing it out there, if you're interested at all, just let me know. I'd love to help you out reach your goals. So
yeah. So Michael he decided to completely pivot what he was doing before, and well, not necessarily, because actually he applied to 2 graduate psychology programs. But when you're coaching someone, you really you get to know them, and you really push them even mentally, not only physically too. So he did pivot, but not like
I realized, like, while I was coaching people in fitness and in health, that I really loved, I obviously loved the physical training aspect,
for sure.
but I did love like what clients were going through in order to get to their goals. There was like obstacles that they had to overcome, things that like different habits that have been developed, and things they had to like mentally break through in order to reach their goals physically.
Yeah.
And so I realized that's what I really did love that part. And so I wanted to explore what that would look like more. And so, yeah, like she said, I applied to 2 different Doctor of Psychology programs.
Mm-hmm. And he was invited to interview at both, which was super exciting because we got to go travel to California and Oregon.
Yeah. And honestly, to be honest, I don't know how
I don't know how
I got selected to come interview. I mean, I my GPA in college was, average.
Yeah.
My GRE that I took, average. Actually, side note about GRE, I realized that I had to take a GRE to apply for school.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, the application deadline's in 5 days. I have to take my GRE now. I haven't been in school for 4 years. I don't remember anything. And so all I did was I looked on Google for a little bit, some like tips on like taking the GRE, and then I went and took the GRE.
Yeah.
And my mind hurt for like days.
It did.
But
you had like a headache for a few days.
But I scored average. So I think it really came down to like my resume and what I had been, my experience, not necessarily my academics, but my experience, and then also my letters of recommendation, which I think were a huge help to get in. So I'm just super appreciative of that. But yeah, that was a side note.
And actually, after we traveled all this way, we actually didn't hear back for like months, and we were like, oh well, crap. I guess this isn't what we're supposed to do next, because it's taking them. They said that they would take only like 2 weeks. Right?
Yeah. They said they would take 2 weeks. Yeah, so I interviewed in beginning of February, like the first week of February. They said, we'll let you know no later than like 2 weeks from now. And then it was... and the deadline was apparently April 15th. Okay, and so February passed, March passed.
And April passed.
April 15th passed, and I was like, that was the deadline. I guess I didn't get in.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't hear from them. And, I heard from one school, and they said I was on the wait list. To get in.
Oh yeah. Very true.
So, but the other one I didn't hear from at all. It was just crickets. And then middle of May came, and like the 3rd week of May, out of the blue,
we were sitting on the couch, I remember.
Yeah.
And you were like, I got an email from APU.
Yeah, out of the blue, like middle of May, third week of May, they're like, "Hey, you still want to come?" I was like, "Yes, I do. Let's go." I responded like almost right away. I was like, "All right, we're going to California," and
super exciting because I mean California.
Yeah. So we lived in Virginia.
So we lived in Virginia in the
It's
Hampton Roads area.
Yeah.
So California is on the whole other side of the United States.
So we're literally on the east, the very, very east coast, next to the water.
East. Yeah.
And then we're moving all the way to the west coast.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're like maybe 45 minutes to an hour from the beach or so.
So it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to move the next state over.
No.
I'm going to move 3,000 miles away.
Yeah, exactly. So we had to rush to get the house ready to be sold because we had been kind of taking our time doing, little projects here and there on the house. Of course, we had gotten like the salon area ready. So all my clients walked in there and it was nice. But the rest of the house wasn't really done.
No, because we didn't have any money to fix it.
Yeah, we didn't have any money to fix it. We were just living like we could. So
we had to borrow more money
just so that we could fix it and make it look nice to be able to be sold. And it looked really nice, actually. I was kind of upset that we had to sell it. But
yeah, we fixed it. So
we lived in it when it was ugly.
Yeah, we lived in it when it was ugly, and then we finally fixed it. Like we were rushing, okay? So we were supposed to leave in July, and basically we had to flip an entire house and pack in the months of June and July, and we're supposed to leave the third week of July.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't list the house until the work was finished. So the month of June, we were just like every single day, like every spare moment that I had, I did that. I hired my uncle and his crew to come over to fix things that I just didn't have enough time to do, and that they were obviously better at anyways. And so it was basically just a mad scramble to get ready to move across the United States and get the house listed, and then hope that the house sells in like a week or two, because that's all the time we had, because we didn't have any money to move across the United States and to rent somewhere in California. Exactly. So we had to have the house sold, and we obviously couldn't pay a mortgage in Virginia and a rent in California.
Because
it wasn't going to be possible.
No.
And so we had to sell the house. And so, literally, we're down to the wire. And it's like, okay, we have to get the house sold in the next, 5 days, or else it's not going to close before we leave, and we're not going to have the money to move. And so, in that 5-day window,
we somehow sold the. Well, shout out to Ben Rigo. He was our realtor, actually. Yeah. And we sold our house.
So he sold that
week.
Yeah,
he sold the house that week, and I was actually wrapping up all my Chop the Locks clients and everything that week too. So I had to pack up and sell a bunch of my stuff from the salon and stuff that week too. Yep. So
then we packed a U-Haul.
We packed up the U-Haul and we're on our way. Just literally that week that we were supposed to leave. We didn't know if we were going to be able to even leave that week, I think.
So the money actually got wired into our bank account the day before we got here. So that way when we got here, we could get the money out of the bank account in order to pay our down payment and first month's rent on our apartment here. And so it's literally just it was all God's timing, because there's no way that it could have happened unless it was that. So it was a crazy witness of all the things that had to fall in place in such a short period of time in order for us to make that move, and happened. And so we just felt strongly that this was confirmation that we were supposed to move and that we were supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And we've seen more confirmation since we've been here. We're going to get to that in a second.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a little bit. And actually, during that time when our house was being remodeled and things like that, we were actually living at our parents' house and everything too for a while. So
because we couldn't live in it and get it flipped. There was too much work that needed to be done.
Yeah, so we would switch between both parents' house and be living there too with them. So
it was crazy.
It was a very crazy time. So we packed up the U-Haul and we moved to California. We didn't have any jobs. We didn't know anyone at all. No one at all. So we were we didn't even exactly have a place to live. We basically did. We had the apartments and everything, but
We
we
had it
didn't
picked
have
out.
like all the papers signed and stuff
No.
like that. So things could have fallen through.
So nothing. We just got in the car. Like, okay, we're gonna drive to California, and we'll figure it out when we get there.
Yeah.
We don't have jobs. We don't have an income. We don't know anybody. But
We got
we're
our
gonna-
stuff. We got our dog. We got each other.
Exactly. We're just gonna go to the most expensive state to live in the entire United
And
States.
after we've been financially very,
Yep.
it's been very financially hard the past couple of years.
Sounds
We're
like a
gonna
smart
go
decision.
to California, so. But
Yeah.
we knew we were supposed to go there. So after a month, maybe a month and a half or so, after being out here, I finally got a job at a salon. And that was a big blessing. And Michael continued to online coach. And then he started school not too long after, because we got here not too long before he had to start school and things. So,
But good thing
yeah,
we
it was-
learned how to budget money in Virginia,
Yes.
because it was
because
hard
very
here too.
expensive for our 450 square foot apartment that we had. And
Yeah, no, 400.
400, that's right.
Yeah.
400 square foot apartment. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
living big in California.
yeah, living big.
So during that time, like she said, she got a job at a hair salon. I was going to school full time and doing online coaching kind of on the side. And so I
Yeah.
had like a part-time job and going to school. And then
We started going to a church in San Dimas, California, which is in the LA County.
yep,
And that we found that church how long after? Maybe
week.
like a week. Yeah, a week after.
so not our very first weekend that we're in California, because we got here on a Friday and we're just exhausted. But like the
Yeah.
very next weekend,
Yeah.
like we were like, okay, we want to go to church.
Let's start looking
Let's start
now.
looking. I did some research online. I was like, this place, I love their values. I love what they stand
Yeah.
for. Like this, it seems like it could be home. And so we went there.
And we stayed.
Yeah.
So
One time we'd never been to another church.
I've never been to another church since being here. So
Yeah, and so we were there. That was like August, and then in like December, they were going through. Our church was going through a couple transitions, and that included the youth pastor moved to another state, and there was some. They didn't know what the next step was. They didn't have anybody to fill in the meantime, and so Haleigh and I just reached out. We're like, hey, we love
if you
youth.
need any help? Yeah.
Yeah, we love youth. And if there's any way that we could just help in the meantime, while you figure out what's next, just let us know.
Yeah.
And we sat down. We had a long conversation with the pastor, and his wife.
Yeah.
And just one thing led to another. And they realized, the passion and, love that we have for youth and obviously, spreading the good news
Yep.
and just loving on the next generation. And so it just kind of worked out. Just God's plan, God's timing. And we actually became the next
pastors.
youth pastors at that church. And it's something that we had talked about before, something that we had wanted to do. We just didn't know when that was going to happen and where that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And we certainly didn't expect it to happen in California,
No.
right? A few months after we just moved there. And so it was an amazing surprise.
Yeah, it was. And we started off with doing
So that we started that in January of this year.
that in January.
Yep.
And we got to know the staff there really well from doing youth group and things like that. And it actually led to me being able to start the administration job that I actually have there now. And that's been such a huge blessing because it helps us out financially, actually, compared to the salon that I was at.
And so, but the other thing cool is about God's timing again,
Yes.
is that you switched from salon to administration job.
Yes.
Right at the end of February, beginning of March, right when.
Yes, right when all of the COVID shutdowns were happening, actually. So we didn't even know that this was going to happen.
Obviously,
we just
yeah,
knew
nobody
that,
knew.
no one, obviously no one knew. So it was like maybe just maybe a few weeks before all of the salons and things like that were shut down. And I would not have had a job for a while if it weren't for me being able to take this administration job. So,
And all I had was a part-time job. So if the salon was shut down, we don't know how we would have survived in California.
No.
So
I have no idea how we would have.
So God's timing showed up.
Yeah, God's timing. I was a little nervous going into it, actually.
Yeah.
Because I had owned businesses and things like that, but I'd never specifically done administration. So it was a huge blessing. And then we actually,
like a month after that.
Yeah, a month after that, we found out that I was pregnant. So
yeah.
So thank goodness
Super
I had
exciting.
a job. Super exciting. We had actually been trying for a while, actually.
Like a year and a half, 2 years.
2 years. So God's timing again. He knew in the right time.
Yeah. Obviously, he's like, I want all these things to fall in place before that, I think you're ready to have a kid. And so we're just, super blessed and super excited to meet our baby boy that's going to be here in like a month. So, and then, so during that time, like Haleigh found out she was pregnant. She got this full-time job that was more stable.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a little 400 square foot apartment. There was one bedroom. Sort of. It was teeny.
Sort of.
Yeah. But anyways, so we were like, okay, if we're gonna have a kid, we need to get like a little bit bigger space. It doesn't have to be a house. It doesn't have to be anything huge.
No.
We just need another bedroom or a little bit more room to have a crib.
A crib at least.
And to be able to walk around. And so we started looking for a condo or a townhouse, or if a house fell on our lap. We just looked for something that we could purchase here in California, because we wanted to, again, invest our money in the real estate market. And we still had, even after, so a side note, the money that we got from selling our house, because again, I said it was a foreclosure and there was work that needed to be done, so we had to put money into it, but we sold it for a lot more than what we had bought it for.
Yes.
And so with that money, we were able to pay back like that $25,000 that I had borrowed over the course of the couple years for FFP. We were able to pay that back in full. Mm-hmm. No longer have any debt to worry about from FFP. Yep. And so that was a huge blessing. And then we still had money left over that we could use for a down payment on a place here. Not a big down payment, just a teeny one. Yeah, but we had a little bit so we were in a financial spot that we could do that. And so we're like, hey, we want to, rather than paying rent, we want to find somewhere that's, a little bit cheaper that we can, start investing our money again into. And so, so we looked for a place. We actually found one after we searched for a few months.
Yeah, it was a while.
Because it was during COVID. There wasn't a whole lot of things on the market. And we really valued location. We did. And so we were just waiting for the right spot, and we finally found it. We now live in a 2-bedroom condo in Rancho Cucamonga, and we absolutely love it here in Rancho.
Yeah.
And again, this was a house or a condo, house, whatever, that needed a lot of work. And
a lot. We didn't even know how much work it needed till we got our hands into it, actually.
So we bought one that wasn't in the best shape. But we realized that there was potential there to make money again, so that's why we chose it, and also the location. And so I actually had off from school that summer when we bought it. We bought it in June, so I had off for a couple months. I'm like, okay, every day for the next 2 months, I'm gonna work on this house. I'm gonna flip this thing so that way it's ready for our kid. Yeah. And so that's what I spent my summer doing. And then, with getting the house ready, the baby coming, needing to be a little bit more financially prepared for the baby, and just the online learning atmosphere, I decided to go ahead and take a year off from school, so that way I could help provide for my family and help position our family to be able to live here in California and support a baby boy. And so I decided I needed to get another job instead of going back to school. And so before I even started applying to places, I had someone reach out to me and was like, hey, do you want to coach at my gym? And I was like, yeah, I
Sure.
do. So again, like, God showed up and was like, hey, I have a plan for you, and I'm going to provide for you. And so, like, before you even, start to look, here you go. Like, I have provided a job for you. And so, like, again, we just saw God's faithfulness. It was just, like, amazing. Like, we've been here for just over a year, and just, like, all these things just keep happening. They have lined up, and it's just, again, confirmation that, like, we're supposed to be here. Even though we're 3,000 miles away from our family and our loved ones, like, and as hard as that is, like, we know that we're here for a reason, and God's placed us here. And so we're going to continue to be faithful to that calling, and He's continued to be faithful to us.
Yes.
And so,
so that kind of brings us almost to where we're at now. We're about a month away from meeting our son. We're so excited. I am definitely done being pregnant now at this point. So, but yeah, we're very excited.
Yeah, Haleigh falls asleep on the couch like every night.
I do it by like 8:30. I'm not even lying. So, and Michael tries to wake me up. It's really annoying, actually. Just kidding. But yeah, so that brings us to where we're at today, and that's kind of where our story's at right now. So we can both just attest with both of our stories. God's faithfulness is a key factor. So
yeah. So that's just like, I just wanted to highlight to close today. I just wanted to highlight like one, if you could see, like, thinking back to like our own personal stories, and then like our story, like, together, mine and Haleigh's story together, like, it's just repeatedly there's a common theme of like when we step out in faith and we trust God and have faith that He's going to take care of us.
Yeah.
As long as we are falling to where we feel like He's leading, He's going to show up. He's going to provide. He's going to be faithful. His timing is going to be perfect. Like, He's God, and we're here just to be His vessel, His servant, and to shine His light for Him. And just again and again and again, He's just continued to show up in our life and continued to show up. And I strongly just believe that's just because we're continued to be faithful for, what He's calling us to do in our lives. And
putting Him first in everything in our... And I can say even we've tithed since the very beginning of our marriage, actually. And before we even knew that we could pay the rest of our bills for the month, we at least did the, gave 10%. And I think that's a lot of the reason why He, he's faithful.
Exactly.
And,
And so, like you're saying, even in those months where we were like counting pennies on the table to be able to pay our bills, like the very first thing we did before we paid any other bill, the very first day of the month, we always paid our 10%. And obviously, and then we paid our bills and we paid and got what we needed.
It doesn't mean that it was very easy though either. We literally sometimes had the exact penny amount, but we had enough, and that's what matters.
Yeah. And so we just want to encourage you today to, like, if you're going through those hard times, maybe financially like we're going through, or just hard times in general, just like through those hard times, as hard as it is to do, like, continue to put God first, continue to be faithful to Him, and He's going to continue to be faithful to you. I promise you that. He's promised it in His Word, and He's shown it over and over and over again in so many people's lives. And so, that's just our encouragement today. And I hope by listening to our story that you've picked up on that and that you're encouraged by that. And so, generally, for future episodes, I would close by praying over the individual, and that's what I'm going to do in the upcoming episodes. But since it's just me and Haleigh today, we're gonna stop there, and just hope that was an encouragement again for you today, and just ask for you to stay tuned. We're gonna be releasing a new episode every single week, at least one episode every single week, if not two. So we're looking forward to this. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Hope you have an incredible week.